Parliament is yet to sit, and it is a new government, the new Labor government, but it is full of independents. One of those is the independent member for Goldstein, Zoe Daniel. She joins us live now. And you are at an energy summit, the Smart Energy Summit. What's being discussed there this morning? Any big solutions?
Hi, Laura. Look, I think what's happening is that you've got a group of energy experts in the room, particularly people who are involved in renewable energy in various ways, who are seeking to understand just exactly what policy settings might be changed, if anything, and how that affects our movement into renewables. I think probably the key concern that was raised here is around the capacity mechanism. There are concerns among those who work both in the industry in renewables but also in the peak bodies that could prolong the life of fossil fuel industries, and that consumers would in effect be paying for that as a sort of insurance scheme, if you like. The people in this room today aren't convinced that that's needed, and they feel that that could be a knee-jerk response that costs consumers a lot of money, doesn't necessarily solve a supply problem, and prolongs the life of what will be stranded assets like coal-fired power plants.
Sure, it is a bit rich, isn't it, to play devil's advocate once again, because the renewable sector has had the benefit of billions of dollars in subsidies for a long time. The reality is that we still need coal and gas for at least another 8 years and beyond that, even under Labor's target at the moment. So is there a sense of reality in the room as well?
Well, I think there's a sense of inserting some reality around where money is spent. And, you know, I'm here as a listener to a degree, as an observer, to get the perspective of this industry, which will be very pivotal in terms of that renewables revolution. And I think as an industry, there is a sense that it's been stalled because of roadblocks that have been put in place over the last, say, 9 or 10 years around moving faster into renewable energy, particularly into things like offshore wind. So I think there's a sense that, well, there's a new government in place that is pro-climate policy, that does want to accelerate a move into renewable energy, and just these people wanting to make sure that the right decisions are made and that progress is not slowed by knee-jerk decisions being made because of the energy crisis that we have right now, much of which, it has to be said, is being driven by offshore factors.
I think we can all see where the future is. Certainly renewables are the future, battery storage, but it's this baseload power during the night time that we need, that reliability factor, if you like. What is the renewable sector saying about how quickly we can get battery storage and storage to replace these fossil fuels in coal and gas?
Yeah, so absolutely the priorities in this room today are around storage and moving into that. So incentivising battery storage is one thing. The other is upgrading the national grid, which, as you know, the ALP has plans to do that, so holding the government accountable for that. But also smaller scale things that can be done, simpler things in regard to, for example, in Victoria, moving households off gas onto electricity, doing things like working on insulation and double glazing in households to reduce energy wastage. It was said to me, not in this forum, but among a group that I was speaking to last week, that one option is to mine households for gas. The point being that Victorian households, particularly because of the climate, are very reliant on gas in winter. But if you shifted those households onto electricity via solar and other renewable sources, that gas can be pushed towards business and manufacturing where it's really needed as we transition into a larger scale renewable energy. So these are the sorts of ideas that are being tossed around. And it is nice, actually, isn't it, to be amid this contest of ideas in the hopeful state that the climate wars are over and we can have these conversations.
I love a contest of ideas, and that will run long into Canberra when you get there in the Parliament as well. It is a very different Parliament indeed. Labor certainly has a mandate. The Teals, you have your own mandate as well. I know you're not in the Senate, but Labor will legislate its long promised target of a 45% reduction in emissions by 2030. Is that acceptable to you? Should they do that? Should the Greens support it?
Well, look, Labor's target is Labor's target. My target, as stated during election, was much higher, at 60%. That said, we have a Labor government in place. I don't see, and as you said, I'm not in the Senate, but, you know, from an observational point of view, I don't see much to be gained from blocking that target. It is a major step forward. But I'd also say that I actually think we need to kind of park the idea of obsessing about targets. I think we should be more ambitious than that. I would like to think that, even though I don't expect the ALP to reframe that target, because that was the number it was elected on,
what
that
do
it
you
will be
mean by
more
that?
ambitious.
I'm just conscious that we're a bit tight for time. What do you mean by the obsession around targets? Because that's where we've been for the last 5 years. And as you point out, you even had like a pretty firm target during the campaign.
I think people get obsessed with what the number is rather than actually doing what we need to do. And I think if we do what we need to do, and if Labor is more ambitious and pushed by people like me, they will exceed that target. And I'd love to think that we can get to the end of the 3 years and that they can come out and say, look what we did. We exceeded our target. So let's focus on being ambitious rather than on hitting a particular number.
Zoe Daniel, appreciate your time. See you in Canberra.
Pleasure.